All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 18 in the NFL, the final week of the regular season. This is normally the Sunday slate video, but we do have a couple Saturday videos or Saturday games to jump into in this video here. So all of the Saturday games, all of the Sunday games, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be its own video posted here on the channel. I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But make sure to keep an eye down on the pinned comment. That'll bring you to the Guy Boston Sports site for free for all of my final plays if that does interest you. In terms of how we did last week, Thursday Night Football. So we traveled a lot last week. We have a Thursday Night Football video to recap and then our Sunday/Saturday slate video to recap there. But we go 1-0-1. Seahawks pushed, and we hit the Geno Smith's under in 34.5 pass attempts. So Thursday Night Football treated us well. And then week number 17, we go 3-1, and even the Jets plus 10. I even made a note earlier in the week. I was like, am I crazy for taking this? Ended up being crazy, yes, but we hit the plus money play with the Chargers alternate line. We had Bo Nix over 1.5 passing touchdowns for plus money, and then Vikings money line comes through as well. So a very good week number 17. Seriously, guys, I don't understand it. I mean, 17 weeks through the NFL season, we've had just 3 losing weeks so far. Now, not every week is this amazing, sweep the board, going crazy type of a week. Some weeks we've made a profit of 0.2 units or 0.3 units, that type of thing. But only 3 weeks we've been in the red. So what an amazing NFL season thus far, NFL regular season. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. I will say before we jump into any of the games this week, make sure you're being smart with your plays this week, guys. I mean, there's guys not playing, teams not caring, teams, that need to play. Like, there's a lot of factors here. We'll try and at least mention those as we go through, but we're not going to be forcing anything. We're not going to take a weird week 18 and ruin, obviously, a very good NFL season. I do have a lot of spots I like. There's a bunch of players that have some stat and contract incentives to hit, so we'll talk about those as well. Very, very excited for that. But overall, guys, just be smart in week number 18. We got some great playoff football coming up that we will be covering extensively here on the channel. No need to blow it all in week number 18. But like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. What do you say we jump into game number 1 here? We have Baltimore taking on Cleveland. Now, this game, I believe Baltimore starters will play at least to make sure they're getting the win. If they go up 21-0, 24-0, something like that, maybe they do pull their guys. But Baltimore does want to solidify their number 3 seed right now. If Baltimore somehow loses to the Browns, and then you see maybe like Pittsburgh wins, I want to say, if Pittsburgh takes on, obviously, the Bengals, if Pittsburgh wins, Pittsburgh and Baltimore can flip. So Baltimore does care about winning this game. The Browns are obviously out of it. They don't care. So I think in terms of a pick here, I would lean towards Baltimore, but 17.5 just screams trap there, right? Like, yes, they should be able to blow out the Browns, but in week 18, in a wonky week, are we really that desperate to go out there and fire, Ravens minus the 17.5 points? I don't think so. That would be the side that I'd look at. But come on, I just don't think that's a smart move. So we probably stay away from that. I don't mind the idea of a Ravens team total over, though. It's going to be a big number, but yeah, that's a good sort of spot. Like I said, they might try to get to an early lead, play some guys, make sure that they can solidify this win. Who knows if they pull their guys for the fourth quarter or whatnot, if they're up 30 to 10 or something like that. Whereas, all of a sudden you throw in 30 to 10. What if Cleveland's bench players and whatnot score like a late touchdown, 30 to 17? Baltimore had a very good offensive game, but now they only win the game by 13 points and don't cover that 17.5. So that's probably a strategy we'd use in a lot of spots here this week, but I'll lean towards Baltimore team total over. Obviously, that's kind of the hybrid play of the spread and the total. In terms of player props here, I'm sticking away from it, and I do apologize. You'll hear me in a couple different games here be like, I'm probably just sticking away from this one altogether, which is just the way my brain's working. I'm not trying to, obviously, go too strong on some games that we just don't really know how to predict. So player props are probably sticking away from in this one. All right, next game up here. This one should be played like a normal NFL game. You have the Steelers, who I just mentioned, do have a chance at the 3 seed with a win, barring a loss, of the Ravens to the Browns, right? And then the Bengals essentially need a lot to happen, including a win here, to potentially make the playoffs. So, this is a big spot. If the Broncos somehow lose to the Chiefs, so I don't believe the Chiefs are going to be playing their guys, and the Bengals win this one, they will kick out the Broncos. So this is a playoff atmosphere type game for both teams. It's really, really going to matter in terms of seeding, right? The Steelers, I believe, are going to be anywhere from the 3-5 5 or 6 seed, so they know they're in the playoffs, which means, maybe they don't care as much as the Bengals. If the Bengals lose, they're out of the playoffs, and for that reason, I do think I lean towards the Bengals. Tassos and I on H to H, the show we do with each other on the channel, disagreed on this one, and I just think that this is a Cincinnati offense that is honestly has been, but honestly lately has been firing on all cylinders. We say what we want about Denver being a good defense. Well, they put up 30 against them, right? Tennessee, Pittsburgh, last time they played, Tennessee could be considered a good defense, but regardless, they put up 37. It doesn't matter if you're good or not, you put up 37, right? Last time these two teams played, the Bengals end up scoring 38 points. It took 44 points from the Steelers to secure that win, which is not Steelers-esque football, right? And honestly, the Steelers now, they've gone through a gauntlet. Last 3 games, Eagles, Baltimore, and Chiefs. I understand that, but the defense, 27 points, 34 points, 29 points. I understand that they're going up against good teams, good offenses, and that type of thing, but the offense has not been there for the Steelers, and the defense kind of hasn't either. And you might make the argument, like I already said, right? Like, well, those are 3 really good offenses. This Bengals offense is also really good. Now, they do have a couple question marks here. Joe Burrow, questionable. He's obviously going to play. T. Higgins, questionable. Chase Brown, questionable. If Chase Brown doesn't play, that is going to be a massive loss because he's been a good player on the ground for them. But hopefully he does play. He kind of tweaked his ankle and then was standing on the sideline at the end of that Denver game. But overall, I like the Bengals in the spot. Probably a money line play. The Steelers defense, albeit it's gone through a gauntlet, against good offenses, has not looked the same. I just don't see why the Bengals are any different. And the Steelers know they're a playoff team, win or loss. It's a seeding thing for them, whereas this is like life or death for the Bengals. So I do think this is a spot to target Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They also have the revenge factor. They put up a really good offensive game, but lost to them, 4 or 5 weeks ago. So give me the Bengals money line in this spot. When it comes to a total, I almost want to look at, Bengals team total over, because I would say this is an over-type game if the Bengals win, right? Because they're the offensive team. Their defense can't stop a nosebleed. I understand that. If the Steelers win, there's a chance that the Steelers defense really just showed up and locked up. But even if I do like the Bengals in an over-type game, the Steelers are only putting up 13, 14, 17 points as of late. I'm a little weary to throw them into the mix with a full game over, right? So maybe just Bengals team total over, kind of like I mentioned with the Ravens, eliminate some factors. That might be where we go in this one. And then Joe Burrow on the player prop side of things, I like him to throw some touchdowns. I mean, his odds are definitely getting juiced through the moon. I think his line is at 2.5 passing touchdowns right now, which is a little bit too much, obviously, to trust. But they're going to rely on Joe Burrow in this game, right? Like, they have to rely on Joe Burrow, especially if Chase Brown is not playing in this one. So in terms of what I'm looking at from a player prop perspective, it'd probably be Joe Burrow over 2.5 passing touchdowns. He's hit it in 8 straight games, I believe, setting records here, right? And you're getting plus 144 odds. Like, even with a sprinkle on that, there is some, viability to the play. If you're on Prize Picks or any DFS, I don't mind his over 1.5 touchdowns, obviously, because he's crushed that so far this season. On the year, he's been hitting that 2 touchdown mark, all but 3 games. So I think Joe Burrow has a game here. I think he needs to have a game, and there's going to be a lot riding on it. All right, here's a weird one. We got the Colts taking on Jacksonville. Now, obviously, this game doesn't really matter for anything. You might want to look at Jacksonville and think, okay, well, maybe they're going to try and lose because it could impact their draft pick. Right now, they're sitting at the number 5 pick. A loss would kind of throw them into that 2, 3, 4 area too. So I don't know if NFL teams really care about that or if coaches, players care about that. But overall, a loss would be good for Jacksonville, whereas a loss for Indianapolis might just bump them up a couple places. I do think Indy's the better team, and they kind of have more to go on right now in terms of trying to make something of the season. Like, yeah, obviously their season didn't end how they wanted them to, but how they wanted it to. They had tons of injuries, right? And right now, all the starters listed as good to go, so I think they finished the season strong. Richardson's questionable. If he plays, give me an Indianapolis -5. Like I said, they have something to build on, and and me included, there's a lot of people that thought this team could actually, not necessarily crush it this year, but maybe make the playoffs and do something. And up until last week when the Giants beat them, like, Indianapolis had a chance at the playoffs, so I think they could come fired up off of that. Both of these defenses aren't all that tremendous on the season here. Jacksonville allowing the third most points per game to opponents. Indianapolis allowing the fifth most points per game. Neither one good against the pass, which obviously is going to be good when you're considering, Anthony Richardson, who's kind of been up and down, and then Mac Jones on the other side. Both of these guys need a bad passing defense to be able to throw on there. And Indianapolis' defense has been really, really poor in the last 3 weeks. Their offense hasn't been all that stale, which is why I'm kind of leaning towards them, but this is Spun, which I do expect a decent amount of points out of them, and I don't expect them to really stop Jacksonville. So I'll lean Indianapolis because I think they have a little bit more pride to play for, and a loss might benefit Jacksonville. I'll also take a peek at the over, not because I'm really in on these offenses or anything like that, but because I think these defenses absolutely stink for sure. And then player prop wise, this is not one of those games that I'm loving to dive into. But that being said, there are multiple player props over on Sleeper Picks that are absolutely a freebie here in week number 18. Joe Burrow, 0.5 passing yards, and Sam Darnold, 0.5 passing yards. Both these quarterbacks have a lot to play for here, and those aren't even the best deals that Sleeper Picks is offering. I've been saying it for a while now. That play $5, get 55 back is an unbelievable deal. Imagine you handing someone $5 and them saying, here's 55, no questions asked. That is absolutely unbelievable. Check out the link in the pinned comment. It'll also be in the description. You'll get these free squares as well as the play 5, get 55. The cool thing is you could go big on that on that $5 entry, right? If you hit that entry, you still get that payout. So you get that payout from the win and the 55 back, and your sleeper account is looking pretty damn good in terms of bankroll. So go ahead and check it out, guys. That link is down in the description as well as the pinned comment. Tell you guys all the time, I've been using Sleeper for years now. It is an amazing, amazing DFS app. All you do is combine 2 or more players into a slip. The more you win, the more you get paid out. And what's cool about Sleeper is that each and every player you throw in changes the payout of that slip dynamically. They don't just follow a fixed payout structure like a lot of other apps. So I think that's very, very unique. Go take advantage on all of the freebies here, and they'll be dropping some Sunday squares as well, like they do every single week. So tons of discounts this week. Do not miss it. Link in the description as well as the pinned comment. All right, Patriots taking on the Bills. Not to talk too much about draft picks here, but right now the Patriots are sitting with the number 1 pick in the draft. The starters for the Bills are going to start the game, says head coach, right? I don't believe they play the full game or anything like that. Obviously, Josh Allen, favorite for MVP, probably wants to at least get another game play, maybe a couple touchdowns, something like that. But this is a weird one because the Patriots most likely want to lose, but they'll probably be going up against second, third, fourth string type guys by the time this game is all said and done. One spot that I would look at here, and I talked about it and took it on H2H with Tassos, is a potential look at, Buffalo in the first half. So right now, 2.5 point spread. I've seen some 2s out there as well. You can still get Buffalo in the first half now for -1 or -0.5, essentially a pick 'em for -115, -110. So to me, that's the move, because if we know that we're at least going to get I'd say a quarter out of Josh Allen, James Cook, Cooper, all the starters, right? Why not try and take advantage of that now? First quarter could be a little weird. What if the Patriots hold the ball for the majority of the first quarter, kick a field goal, then, the Bills just get the ball back? That's why I'd look at first half, because I do think that overall the Bills at least give me 1 or 2 possessions. They should be winning this game. So that's kind of where I'd come out on that. And it is only a 2-point spread, but this could get dicey, down the end. If the Patriots are trying to play for Gerard Mayo, show that they like him, which a lot of Patriots fans, myself included, do not love him. But if they are trying to play for them and whatnot, if Buffalo yanks all of their guys and they're going third stringers and that type of thing, the Patriots could kind of squeeze in at the end of this game, which would stink for me, because then we lose the number 1 pick and we lose this play. So I'm just looking at least a little bit of a safety net here. Go play a good first half of football for Buffalo. Win the first half, and we'll call it quits, right? And then hopefully, as the Patriots fan in me, we're still looking at the number 1 pick at the end of this, and it ends in a Buffalo victory. But in terms of betting purposes, I'm only considering the first half in this one. Now, a total perspective, last time they played, obviously, we did see somewhat of a decent game from the Patriots. It was 24-21. And that was a lot of points in the second half for Buffalo, right? I don't think Buffalo's going to put up that many. They might get 1 or 2 out of the starters, which would be 14 points, maximum, and then maybe 21 from them. And if I think the Patriots are kind of going to hang around in there, maybe it's like a 21-17 game. We're looking at a 38. So it's right there. I don't know where to go on this 36.5. I would lean over just because it's weird at the end of the year, and maybe the Patriots have something to play for. Drake May shows off, that type of thing. But I think the only thing I really want to look at here would be Buffalo in the first half. Even from a player prop perspective, it's probably going to be like only Patriots if we do roll with anything. Nothing jumping off the page to me as of right now. If we do add anything, it'll be in the final plays over on the Guy Boston Sports site, and I'll give a little blurb as to why I like it. The only thing I'm considering as of right now is a potential look at maybe some Drake May numbers, because I do think he's going to get a lot of workload because they're going to try and prep him and get him ready for some momentum heading into the next season. Real quick, guys, as I'm going through this after we've recorded and whatnot, I know a lot of these plays are, I think this is going to go like this, or maybe we see this, and that sort of verbiage and whatnot. It is weird in week number 18, so I just want to let you know that I understand that this is not the typical video where we're talking about, the rushing stats and the yards per attempt and the EPA, DVOA, all that, but it is week number 18. It's wonky. I suggest everyone be very, very safe and I guess conservative when going into this week, but just letting you know, at least if you're thinking this being like, this is kind of a, on the fence for this, on the fence for that. Yeah, there's very few places this week that obviously we're loving, but I still want to get at least the opinion and the information to you guys. So hopefully you guys do appreciate that. Let me know that you made it this far in the video by commenting 16 down below. At least you'll let me know that, you heard this part, because I do get it too. Obviously, we make videos every single week, and they're going to change week to week. When we get to week number 18, there's a lot of playoff implications, guys sitting, teams looking for good draft picks, that type of stuff. That kind of supersedes, I guess, in the last 3 games, they've averaged this on the ground against defenses like this, X, Y, and Z. Just hopefully that makes sense to you guys. All right, Dallas taking on Washington. I still think Washington will come into this game trying to make sure that they stick in that seed. So the way that things could work here is if Minnesota and Detroit obviously play, they're going to jump for the 5 and 6 seed. If Green Bay wins, let's see if we even put this into a calculator. So if we have Green Bay winning in terms of their matchup, and Washington loses this game to Dallas, Washington goes from playing, I think it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams in the first round to the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a big game for Washington. Again, if Green Bay if Green Bay beats the Bears, which obviously that's probably the most likely outcome, right? And Washington loses this game, then they could be facing a way harder team. Now, I don't think that there's any way that they can get home field advantage, so they don't have that to play for or anything. But again, who would you rather play, Rams or Philadelphia? Pretty damn big game for Washington, so I like them in this spot. They are the far and away better team. You look at Dallas, and sure, they looked a little bit better for a few weeks there, but that was against Cincinnati, Carolina, Tampa Bay. They go up against Philly last week and put up a 7 spot. They lose 41-7. So sure, they might be able to beat the bad teams and that type of thing, but against good teams, I don't think so. And they did have that sort of miraculous, which is kind of what started the winning streak, for example, for lack of a better term, against Washington. They already beat them a few weeks back. I think it was 5 weeks ago, whatever it was. They win 34-26 as 11-point dogs. You think Washington wants that to happen again, especially with some playoff seeding implications here? I do not think so. So give me Washington. I also like the over in this spot because Washington's defense, albeit, has gotten better throughout the season, not exactly like the best defense overall. We've known that. So far, last 3 weeks, 25 points allowed per game on the season, about 24 points per game. On the road this year, 26 points per game allowed. So, yeah, I think maybe Dallas could put up somewhat of a respectable number here, but still Washington beating them. And then one player prop that I'm really liking, Zach Ertz altogether. Zach Ertz has a reception incentive to play for. I think he needs like 9 more, which is a little bit, crazy. He needs, I think it's like 90 yards more, which obviously that's a lot anyways, but he needs 2 more touchdowns to unlock. I think all of those are like $250,000 incentives. So $750K, I might have that number wrong, but around that number on the line for Zach Ertz. Last week, he had 2 touchdowns. He had 72 yards. I like him this week again. A touchdown for Zach Ertz is plus 275 here, right? Plus 275 for him to score a TD. On some books, it's at 165. So if you have Caesars, Bet365, jump on those if you do want to sprinkle on them. It's definitely something I'm considering. I don't have his receptions line just yet. We're recording this on Friday afternoon. They don't play till Sunday, obviously. So I like his yards, touchdowns, and receptions, Zach Ertz overall, because he's got the incentives. And like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of player props we're targeting today are guys that have some monetary reasons and incentives to play for it. And the team knows that. You don't think Jaden Daniels is going, hey, veteran, I'm a rookie, but I got you. Like, we know what this means. I believe in that type of stuff. All right, now we have the Eagles taking on the Giants. The Giants should be playing everyone. They don't have any reason to not. It's not like they're at risk of, getting guys injured for the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs, right? Eliminated. But Jalen Hurts, questionable. A.J. Brown, questionable. Devonta Smith, questionable. Kenny Pickett's questionable as well, by the way. Saquon Barkley is not listed on the injury report, but is he going to play? Obviously, he's looking for that rushing record, and it would be pretty crazy to do it against his old team, the team that kind of, we all saw it on Hard Knocks, kind of gave up on him, right? Or didn't value him at the very least. So this is an interesting one because are these guys going to play? We don't know that now. They've been kind of, quiet about whether or not they're thinking they're going to play. So I think that I might spin this one just like I did with the Bills game. At best, I'd feel comfortable looking at a potential lean towards Philadelphia, minus the 0.5 in the first half. I think even if the guys don't play, I still do think Philly's defense, or I guess their second string should be even better than maybe some of these guys on New York first string wise, right? So I think that that's going to be the lean that I go towards. Saquon, if I was the Eagles and I was so close to the record, I probably would play him just because you have so many factors. Breaking a record that a lot of people would not think would be broken, which that was in 16 games. This is 17. I understand it, Dickerson and whatnot. But overall, now he's got the chance to do it against his old team. There's a lot of feeling that goes into that. And you might be sitting there being like, yeah, but they don't want to hurt him for the playoffs and whatnot. Do you know how much of a playoff momentum booster it would be for them to get Saquon and he breaks the rushing yards record with them season 1? I think that could propel them and ultimately net positive them in the playoffs. That's how my crazy brain works. Let me know if you think I'm crazy in the comments, but I do think that they should at least give him a chance at it. I'm not saying play 60 minutes, go out there and full game, but say, hey, if you're rolling in the first quarter, we'll keep you going. If you're rolling in the second quarter, we'll keep you going. Minimize the chance of him getting hurt or dinged up or anything, but give him a chance at the record. So yeah, give me the Eagles first half money line essentially right now. That is minus 140 on ESPN, but you can get minus 0.5, which obviously if they tie, that would be a loss, but minus 120. Either one of those. In terms of a total, your guess is as good as mine in this one. I would say over because I do think the Giants are going to try and pass the ball and feed Malik Neighbors, who is, I think it's 4 receptions behind Brock Bowers, who, the records for rookie receptions, not just wide receiver, rookie receptions. Puka Nacua had it at 105. Brock Bowers is at 108, 109 right now. Malik Neighbors is 1 behind Puka Nacua, and he could definitely, if they feed him, leapfrog Brock Bowers and set a rookie receiving record. So I don't see why they wouldn't want to feed him. So that would be a spot in which I think favors the over. But also from a Malik Neighbors perspective, we've cashed him multiple times this season, right? Right now, his receptions line is at 6.5, but it's near even money. And what's crazy is that he's hit this in 9 of his 14 games so far this year. On the road, 5 of 6 games. The one that he didn't was against Carolina. He had 6 receptions, and he only caught 6 of his 10 targets. So he definitely had a chance to go out there and get that as well. So yeah, I like this spot. Last time he did play Philadelphia earlier on in the year, he had 4 receptions, only on 8 targets though. You know what I mean? So he wasn't garnering the same amount of target share then that he is now. Then he only was getting 20% of the targets, and obviously at the beginning of the year, different quarterback. This season, as an aggregate now, 31% of the targets. So Malik Neighbors over 6.5 receptions. It's a super, super high line, but where else are they going to go with the ball? Packers taking on the Bears. We kind of mentioned this when we talked about Washington, right? Packers winning this one. If the Cowboys end up beating Washington, the Packers go from playing the Eagles to the Rams, which is obviously a huge, huge deal for them. They need to win to get it done. 10.5 is kind of a weird number. I'd probably sit here, look at this one and say, okay, you know what? Why don't you go win by 10? We can move that line down from 10.5 down to 9.5. Right now, if you are looking at that, let's see, we can do a live odds read right here. So 9.5 is Eagles Philadelphia Eagles on the brain. Packers minus 9.5, minus 118 right now over on 365, minus 120 most other places. So yeah, that'd probably be where I go. My one concern is that this is obviously somewhat of a rivalry, right? Somewhat of a rivalry. Look, I'm calling the Packers the Eagles, and now I'm saying somewhat of a. This is a rivalry, okay? Whether the Packers are good, the Eagles, the Bears are bad. Can I get the Eagles? I'm going to drop a wampum. Can I get the Eagles out of my brain? Maybe it's because I have them to win the Super Bowl as a future, right? But the Bears, obviously, not all that great. The Packers, a very good team, but it's still a rivalry. They're in Lambeau. Last time they played, which is just about, a month and a half ago, it was a 1-point win for Green Bay. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit sort of weary to say, hey, go win by double digits, but I think the Packers have to come into this one pretty damn pumped up. And the Bears, on the other hand, what do they have to play for, right? If they lose this game, it could like they could jump in terms of draft picks. So yeah, I think 4-12 right now. There's a lot of teams that are 4-12. There's actually 5 of them 4-12. So if some of those teams win and the Bears take a loss, like they could definitely be moving up the board. So maybe that's something that's on their mind. I doubt it. They have their young pieces. They're trying to build around Caleb. Like obviously they're going to try and win, but this Packers team is very, very good. And I don't necessarily see them sitting here saying, hey, let's not blow away let's take this game lightly. I don't see that. They even almost beat Minnesota, last week, right, in a very, very good game. So yeah, give me the Packers -9.5, a little bit of an alternate line there. When we get to a total, I would sit here and say the Packers, I think, could put up a decent number, and maybe the Bears kind of, straggle along type of thing, but overall, maybe Packers team total over being the smarter play in this one. All right, Falcons, Panthers. I've seen a lot of buzz on social media about this one. I really don't have much interest in it. I know you have Michael Penix Jr. going up against Bryce Young, and I get that aspect of it, but both these teams have just been ridiculously hard to read. Like, if you're sitting here saying you know what's going on with these squads and all that, like, I just can't necessarily believe you. So I would probably say 8.5 points is a hell of a lot, and maybe I lean towards the Panthers here, but I haven't been the biggest believer in the Panthers. If you guys have been watching, even when they got hot and started covering a lot of games against the spread, I was like, I just don't think that's sustainable. Like, Bryce Young's making a lot of plays where he's showing how damn good he is, but he's making some miraculous plays and throws. Like, it's not exactly the best spot for him. But in this case, it's like, well, Michael Penix at the same time, yes, they just kept it to a one-score game against Washington. I get that. But Michael Penix has been making some throws that are kind of like head-scratching as well, right? Like, if Kyle Pitts doesn't box his guy out and catch that ball at the end of the game against Washington, like, that's obviously not as good of a performance from Michael Penix. Like, that was one of the best throws I've seen him make, and obviously it reflects well on the scoreboard and whatnot, but if he doesn't throw that last touchdown, he's looking at a 19 of 35, 200 and, I don't know, maybe 200 and maybe less than 200 yards in a one interception game. So that one pass obviously changes things a lot there. So give me the Panthers plus the 8.5 points. I think it's way too much. I don't know if I can get there myself. Like I said, this is such a weird game to me, but 8.5 still is 8.5. So as I talk about it more, I almost talk my dumb brain into it more. So we'll see. In terms of the total, sitting at 48.5 as of right now. Pretty big number for what we've seen out of two inconsistent offenses. But we mentioned that both these guys do have the arms and the ability to make some plays, right? Have we seen much out of the defenses? I don't think so. So I'll lean towards the over as well. And we don't have many lines in terms of player props in this one yet. One thing that I would consider is, and I don't even know if we'd be able to get it or where we could get it if it's available, but maybe something that says, both quarterbacks 1+ touchdowns thrown probably would be juicy, but I could see both of these guys being like, yeah, let's have a little bit of a rivalry here in terms of what we got. So I guess that just because they're both young quarterbacks, you know what I mean? So I guess that's something I would consider, but how much would I consider it? I'm not all that sure. All right, Tennessee taking on Houston. Now, Houston, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty much solidified as that 4 seed in the AFC, right? So that's why you're probably looking at this line being like, why is it only 1? Well, Houston doesn't really have much of a reason to play. So not even -1, +1, right? Doesn't have a much reason to play. Now, are they going to play their guys? I don't know if we've seen them be like, up, I guess open about that yet, but I imagine by this line, the answer is no. The only thing I'm considering in this one, because I really don't want to take the time and be like, yeah, well, let me ride with Tennessee. Like, again, it's clearly in my head that these teams care about their draft picks to some degree, and you do have Tennessee sitting as the number 2 pick right now. I doubt that they really want to win as they're looking for a quarterback too, you know what I mean? So and try not to get too harped in on that, but I've been harping on it, you know what I mean? But one thing that I do really like, and we don't have lines just yet, but another incentive play is Tony Pollard. I believe he needs like 80 yards or something to cash a decent-sized incentive, so could be a position that we look at there. This has been a Texans defense that has been obviously very good this season, and against the run in particular, top 5 defensive team DVOA ranked. Last 3 weeks, though, 25th in terms of ranking. So what's that, the 7th worst in terms of preventing rushing yards per game? Now, Tony Pollard obviously is just coming off of, well, actually, it's been kind of weird. So he was injured, and then he missed the game because of his flu, But one thing that's been noted here now is Tajay Spears, who was picking up some of the Tony Pollard slack, is either doubtful, and I've seen in some cases already been ruled out for week number 18. So now it's going to be what? The Chestnut guy, Joey Chestnut, out there eating hot dogs, and Tony Pollard. I forget Chestnut's first name, so I went with Joey. But Tony Pollard, if he does play, why wouldn't they try and feed him? Get his incentives. I know, again, like we can't just base everything on incentives, but that at least means Tony, even if these guys on the team aren't sort of scheming to get Tony Pollard yards, you don't think that he knows that he's got, $250,000, $500,000 coming his way type of thing if he rushes for this. So regardless of what his line is, I do think it's a decent look. I would also consider a Tony Pollard touchdown as well. I'm not sure if that's incentive. I think I just read that it was yards, but either way, that's probably the only thing that I am actually considering in this one. Total wise, like I've said for a lot of these ones, I'm kind of just scratching my head on it. If the Texans defense sits a lot of guys, I don't see any reason why we couldn't look at it over, because it's not like this Tennessee defense is all that great. They looked good early on in the year. That's what we thinking that they were building their season around, and then kaput, you know what I mean? So I like the over. It's just a low line at 37.5, but Tony Pollard definitely is what's catching my eyeball more than anything so far in this matchup. All right, Bucks taking on the Saints. Two things to look at here. In terms of what we go for in the game, probably just Tampa Bay team total over. That's kind of all I'm thinking about. But two player prop spots that I would be looking at would be Mike Evans, as he needs, I think it's just, 85 yards to be able to join, either breaks a record or joins a select few. I kind of forget at the time of recording now because I'm dumb, but to receive 1,000 yards in a season every year he's been in the league, right? Which would be incredible. We've already seen Baker Mayfield talk about, we're going to try and get Mike his, you know what I mean? So like they're in the clubhouse or the locker room being like, let's go do this damn thing. Now, I was able to snag this earlier at 92.5. It's now 99.5, which he's going to have to go for 100 yards, which is fine given the fact that his quarterback also has a decent incentive here. Baker Mayfield, yards per completion, needs to finish in, it's either the top 10 or top 8 in his contract, and he unlocks a decent $500K boost or something. Again, these incentive numbers, I don't know if I have them exactly right in terms of what they get. I know Mike Evans, if he gets that, 1,000 yards and I think a couple more receptions, he can literally get $3.7 million. Like, that is the biggest incentive on the board so far this week. Everyone else is like 250, 500, that type of thing. Mike Evans, nearly $4 million if he gets this. So that's huge, right? And Baker Mayfield's, yards per completion is obviously going to be factored into that. So a couple things. I liked Baker Mayfield's pass attempts and pass completions. We don't have lines up for those yet. I don't mind his passing touchdowns. Right now it is heavily juiced, but we'll see where that final line comes out at. And then you throw in the fact that passing yards, longest completion, I'm just giving you that information in that context. However you want to roll with that, I do think is fair. But yeah, maybe we look at like a Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans same game parlay where we can diminish these numbers and massage them a little bit, because we both know that these guys are going to get theirs and we know that they're correlated. Mike Evans can't catch balls without Baker Mayfield throwing them to him, right? So maybe we have Mike Evans' longest reception, Baker Mayfield's longest completion, and then in the same game parlay, we knock down Baker Mayfield's yards and knock down Mike Evans' yards, marry them up, and they're married forever. No divorce. I think that's something we could consider doing. So keep an eye on the final plays there. That's how I would roll with this game. Clearly, I'm pretty invested in it that we didn't really even consider the spread or the total. Again, I like Tampa Bay team total over, just given the fact that these two guys, their two best players, should have a lot of workload. And I didn't even mention that this game, super, super, super important for Tampa Bay, right? If Tampa Bay loses this game, they could be out of the playoffs. They lose this game and Atlanta beats Carolina, there's a strong chance that, Tampa Bay could be sitting here being like, okay, well, see you later. In fact, not even a strong chance. I think that even, if they do lose and Atlanta wins, I think it's kaput, right? Like, there's no head-to-head any issues. So yeah, this is like a must-win game for Tampa Bay as well. So even more reasons for these guys to play. This is probably my favorite spot on the board, but I will tell you this. If you're hearing all this stuff from the first time from me, it's not like an original opinion. I'll be transparent and say that a lot of people on social media are talking about Mike Evans. I haven't seen many people discuss Baker Mayfield, but a lot of people are talking about Mike Evans getting his and Tampa Bay obviously needing to win. So I want to at least be clear about that. Like, this is not like a diamond in the rough. The books and everywhere else, everyone has already kind of reacted to the situation here. Still don't hate it, though, to be completely honest. All right, Arizona at home taking on San Francisco. This is a meaningless one as well. I believe Josh Dobbs is starting for San Francisco, so no Brock Purdy. there's tons of injuries on the San Francisco side of things. They're clearly packing up and getting ready to play some golf. So, yeah, I'll lean towards Arizona minus the 4.5 points. The total right now sitting at 43. Maybe an Arizona team total over. Either way, this is not a spot in which I'm loving it. Like, there's a strong chance I don't even put any more time for the next couple days into this game. And that's just hand up being honest and transparent with you guys, because this game really doesn't matter. The reason I do, and I'll tell you the reason I do like Arizona is because they are a younger team. Like San Francisco had Super Bowl aspirations this year. You know what I mean? They got kicked in the you-know-whats and essentially for the last couple weeks, I'd say gave up. Arizona, on the other hand, does have young guys, is still trying to figure out and build towards next season, obviously, right? So I think that that's partially a factor here overall, where it's like they might end the season on more of a high, potentially. So that's the only reason that I like Arizona. Rams taking on the Seahawks. I think, unless I'm mistaken, there's still a big chance, not big chance, there's still a very, very, very small chance that Seattle can make it into the playoffs with a win here. But overall, I don't think that that's going to be the case. So this is most likely a Rams spot, which is why you see the Rams as heavy underdogs here, because I think that, this one's pretty much said and done. But overall, we don't have any injury designations or guys announced that they're sitting and whatnot at the time of recording. So that's worth noting. I think Seattle plays hard here. I would look at their team total over, because this has not been a very good Rams defense for the season. Now, the defense is definitely shored up a little bit, but I think Seattle does come in here and says, okay, you know what? We kind of blew it, or not blew it, but the Cardinals blew it for us. Seattle had a really bad loss against, the Giants earlier in the year. That clearly is going to bite them in the you-know-what now, so that's tough to see. But the one big factor here is that Geno Smith has a huge passing incentive as well. To unlock some serious cash, he needs to throw for, I think it's like 185 or something. So maybe a Geno Smith peak at his attempts, completions, or just his passing yards in general. Now, obviously, we can't just look at that number. 185 or whatever it is very, very low, right? But right now, his passing yards number is 249.5 against a Rams team that is allowing the 10th most passing yards to opposing players so far this year. And Geno Smith on the road has struggled, but he's always hovered right around this line, like 249.8 on the road this season. This year, 256. So obviously that home game is a little bit, more favorable for him. But I don't hate the idea of him being able to go out there and find some of his guys. You look at the injury report for them, nothing for JSN, nothing for DK, nothing for Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant. Like all these guys, I think, Kenneth Walker obviously not playing, but and Zach Charbonnet is playing, so he can catch some passes. I do think there's a chance that Geno Smith could have a decent game here. So incentive wise and just matchup wise, I think that we could see some decent play out of Geno here. Wide receiver ones have a 13% production increase when playing against the Rams, and tight ends have a 15% increase. So yeah, maybe those guys to look at, whether that's DK and Fant, that type of thing. Ultimately, I would just say Geno, but if you do want to get specific, pair him up with guys, that might be the look to go towards. All right, Jets taking on the Dolphins. The Jets still do have a chance at the playoffs. If the Chiefs beat the Broncos, which is obviously, a viable situation, even if they do sit their guys, and then the Raiders beat the Chargers, we could see the Dolphins, if winning this game, sneak into the playoffs, right? So obviously that's a lot that needs to happen, and both sides are most likely the least likely outcome, if that makes sense. But still, like there's a path to getting into the 7th seed here for this Miami team. I think that makes them obviously want to play. Now, Tua is questionable, Jalen Waddle's questionable. Their defense has some banged up guys. But what if and we just saw Miami with Tyler Huntley at quarterback beat this Jets team, right? So, beat a Browns team. What is different about this Jets team? This Jets team just does not look like they're doing anything right. 40 points allowed to the Bills. They got beat 19-9 in a game they probably should have beat the Rams in. So, yeah, I'll lean towards Miami as underdogs in this spot. Do I think that Miami believes they could make the playoffs? A lot needs to happen that's out of their control, which I can only imagine how much that stinks in the locker room, right? Like, we can beat the Jets, but now we need two unlikely situations to happen. I guess that the saying would be like, you never know, right? But overall, I don't think Miami comes into this one feeling like they have a strong chance of making the playoffs. But they're catching points in this one. They are an underdog. They're playing the Jets. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't lean towards Miami in this spot. Last time they played, which was back in early December, right? They won 30-26 via overtime. That's kind of a weird game. Jonnu Smith has been very good for them, was like absent in the entire game. Not absent from the field, but not getting targets. And then he had a crazy good overtime. They won it, right? So I do think that, they might have that to remember, like, oh, let's get Jonnu going early and whatnot. So overall, I don't know. I just think that there are some weapons on this Miami team, but the fact that this line is where it is kind of like alarming to some degree, right? Like, are we going to see no Tua again? Are some of these starters not going to play, or who knows what? So I'll lean Miami in this spot. In terms of the total, it's way down there at 38.5. It must be some bad weather in New York. What I'm seeing right now is just like, cloudy but very cold. Maybe we're anticipating maybe there's some more detailed weather in there, because that does seem a little low. I'll lean towards Miami still, and potentially maybe their team total over. I don't know if I want to touch the full game over, because again, these lines aren't necessarily matching up for what I would think. Miami still has a chance. Jets eliminated. Kind of a weird to see them as underdogs, but maybe I'm missing something. If I am, let me know in the comments. All right, moving on to the Raiders taking on the Chargers here. Like I said, there is, to keep the playoffs where they are right now, the Chargers may be considering winning and whatnot. I don't think that they're at all that much of a risk now. They obviously clinched their ticket into the playoffs. I could be mistaken in that. Obviously, if they end up losing and Denver beats the Chiefs, could they flip? I don't think so, but again, with so many scenarios and intertwining other things happening in the league, I could just be missing something. But either way, this spread at 4.5, I don't see any reason why the Chargers, even if they don't take this game fully seriously, shouldn't be able to go out there and win this game, right? You have the Raiders, who a loss would probably do them good in terms of a draft pick. The one thing I will say in terms of the Raiders and who's going to be throwing them the ball is obviously a fair question. But right now, Brock Bowers, I already mentioned it with Malik Neighbors, is the leader in terms of historical rookie receptions. He has 108 or 109. If he keeps going, then he's going to pull away from Malik Neighbors and hold another record to himself, which is going to be definitely hard to break, right? So I think that, I think it's O'Connell probably going to be starting, who obviously loves Brock Bowers. Maybe targeting Brock Bowers in terms of receptions or receiving yards could be a spot here as well. We've seen the Chargers play really good defense this season, but if there's one spot that they've, kind of had some hiccups in, it has been passing. Now, in terms of them on the road, they've been phenomenal against the pass this season, and they're getting a little bit more healthy. But overall, I still think that might be the spot that we consider to look at. They are healthy, so just keep that for healthy in terms of guys that aren't on IR. But overall, Brock Bowers might be a consideration. Give me the Chargers. In terms of the total, it's sitting at 41.5. This is not my favorite game here. I think that this is maybe a spot for the Raiders team total under. The Chargers defense, even if they sit some of their offensive guys, I think the Chargers defense does their job this week. All right, quick one here. I do think the Broncos not need to, but should care about winning this game. We already kind of went through the scenario that if they lose and, the Dolphins win, like, there's a chance that the Dolphins could sneak in. Very small chance, but still chance nonetheless. So Broncos probably want to win this game. We've already heard the Chiefs be very vocal. They're probably the most vocal in the league about guys that aren't playing. They said that they're most likely going to sit some of their key guys. So I'm thinking Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins. Speaking of Hopkins, he does have some incentives, but if he sits, that may not be a viable option, right? So this is a quick one. I think the Broncos win it. Even if you like Kansas City to still cover, it's a little bit too risky. You're going to have Carson Wentz, maybe Kareem Hunt, Juju Smith-Schuster, and some of those guys might not even play, right? Wentz will probably get the start because I don't think they even have a rostered quarterback after him. But overall, if you like the plus 11, sure. I think it's just risky. You're literally rolling the dice at that point, and I don't think that's all that educated. But if you are crazy, we'll sound the psycho alert alarm and a psycho. I love you more for it. So give me the Broncos on some sort of money line spot here. In terms of the total, it's sitting at 90. It's sitting at 40. Give me the over. I still think that this Broncos team could, especially if they sit some defensive guys on the Kansas City side of things, this Broncos offense has definitely, Bo Nix in the offense has looked very, very good. Now, I saved it for last. My favorite spot in this one is probably taking a peek at the wide receiver for the Broncos here, Courtland Sutton. He has a 59.5, but I've also seen some higher lines for better odds, 69.5 more likely. in terms of his receiving yards. He's playing for some incentives. I think if he gets, I want to say 80 yards, he unlocks a pretty damn good check there. Last time he played Kansas City, which was this season, he had 70 receiving yards on the dot. That was on 6 receptions. So I like him across the board, whether it's his over 5.5 receptions for plus money or his receiving yards. I think it's a good spot for Courtland Sutton overall. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's show. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's a little wonky heading into week 18. I'm very excited for the playoffs. Spoiler alert, we're going to be doing one video for each and every playoff game moving forward, which I know you guys love the one game breakdown, so we'll dive super deep into them. Me, Trey, and Tass is going to be tackling those, so very, very excited. But yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Long video, a lot of rambling. I'm sorry, but we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.